Two completely different stories, same person, same prison, same time period. One version says Pooh Shiesty was getting pressed, forced to stand while eating, commissary taken, performing for other inmates just to stay safe. Claims that would permanently damage the image of any rapper who built his reputation on being exactly the kind of person those rumors describe. The other version comes from a man who spent over 30 years in federal prison. Someone who knows that environment from the inside in a way that no blogger or social media account does. And he said all of it was false. Both sides can't be right, and figuring out which one holds up is about more than just defending or attacking one person's reputation. It's about understanding how prison rumors work, why they spread so fast, and what the actual evidence says when you put the stories next to it. Here's the full picture. Pooh Shiesty walked into federal prison at the peak of his career. Back in Blood with Lil Durk had already done what most artists spend years working toward, charting, millions of streams, national attention within months. Then, in 2021, a federal case tied to incidents in Miami started closing in. By early 2022, he made the decision to take a plea, pleading guilty to a single count to reduce the exposure. Prosecutors had reportedly been pushing for around a decade. He received 63 months, just over 5 years. He went in at the top. And while he was inside, the internet started writing its own version of what was happening to him. The rumors that started circulating were specific. Not vague suggestions that things weren't going well, but particular claims that carried the kind of detail that makes people believe something is real. The most repeated one was that he was being forced to stand while eating, a detail that carries specific meaning in prison culture. It doesn't suggest a fight, it suggests dominance. Someone else controlling your movement, your space, your basic routine. If that were true, it would mean he was at the bottom of the hierarchy in that environment. Then came claims that his commissary was being taken, that other inmates were taxing him, extracting money from his account in exchange for being left alone, that he had to perform and freestyle for people inside just to avoid bigger problems. Each claim built on the last. And the combination of all of them pointed to one conclusion, that the image he had built on music was being exposed as something that didn't hold up when the fame wasn't there to protect him. That narrative traveled fast because it matched what people already wanted to believe about the gap between rap personas and real life. To understand what was actually plausible, you have to understand how money functions inside federal prison. And this is the context most people discussing the rumors never addressed. Commissary is the economic system inside. Extra food, hygiene products, clothes, small comforts, all of it flows through commissary. And the amount an inmate has access to is directly tied to how much money is being put into their account from outside. He was a platinum artist when he went in. His account wasn't empty. That changes the dynamic significantly. Inmates with substantial commissary money are not typically in the position the rumors described. They're buying food, building their own meals, sometimes paying other inmates who can cook to prepare things for them. Pooh himself later mentioned eating well inside, referencing steak specifically, not as a symbolic statement but as something he actually had. That's not the description of someone whose commissary was being taken. That's someone with resources and the sense to use them quietly. The PC, protective custody, angle added another layer to the rumors. Claims circulated that he had been separated from the general population, which people interpreted as a sign he couldn't handle being around other inmates. But the way protective custody actually operates in high-profile federal cases is more complicated than that framing suggests. When someone with national name recognition enters federal prison, the administration evaluates risk differently. An incident involving a well-known figure becomes a national headline. It creates institutional problems. So, in some cases, the administration makes the separation decision, not the inmate. It's about controlling the facility's exposure, not about the inmate's inability to function in general population. Whether that applied here or not, the conflicting accounts, some saying he was in PC the entire time, others saying they saw him in general population moving normally, tell you something on their own. If something significant and verifiable had occurred, there would be documentation. That federal prisons record incidents, conflicts, and medical situations, particularly for high-profile individuals. None of that documentation surfaced publicly. Then came the man who pushed back directly. A 30-plus-year federal prison veteran stepped into the conversation with a specific defense. This wasn't someone promoting Pooh Shiesty's music or connected to his label or his camp. This was someone whose credibility came entirely from lived experience in exactly the environment the rumors described. And his account was direct. No extortion, no forced performances, no unusual situations. What he described was someone who understood how to do time, staying in his lane, avoiding unnecessary attention, not trying to prove anything to anyone. That assessment matters for a reason beyond just his credibility. In federal prison, the inmate who comes in trying to maintain a tough image is often the one who ends up in the most trouble. The instinct to protect a public persona, to perform strength in front of other inmates, to respond to every test, that's what creates problems. The inmate who survives long stretches in that environment well is usually the one who reads the room, keeps their circle tight, and doesn't create unnecessary friction. The OG's description of how Pooh moved aligns with the behavior profile of someone who did time effectively, not someone who was being controlled or humiliated. And then there's the timeline. Prosecutors originally pushed for close to a decade. He received 63 months and was out significantly earlier than that. Early release in the federal system isn't random. It's tied directly to behavior. Following rules, avoiding disciplinary incidents, not creating problems for the institution. That process is documented. Staff are involved. It leaves a record. If Pooh Shiesty had been constantly involved in situations, getting extorted, getting into conflicts, or drawing the kind of attention the rumors described, that trajectory toward early release doesn't happen. You don't quietly accumulate the behavioral record needed to come home early while simultaneously being one of the most chaotic and pressured people in the facility. Those two things don't coexist. When he came home in October 2025, there was none of the behavior that typically follows someone who genuinely went through what those rumors described. No desperate interviews to reestablish his image, no long explanations trying to address specific claims. No visible signs of someone who had experienced something that broke their sense of self. He moved toward music and rebuilding, not toward damage control. That's not how people behave after surviving the experience the rumors described. That's how people behave after surviving prison the way most people survive federal time. Hard, quiet, focused, and ready to get back to work. So, why did the stories exist in the first place? Because the incentive to create them was obvious, and the conditions for spreading them were perfect. Memphis has always had competitive energy between different camps and neighborhoods. When one artist climbs fast, others are watching. Prison creates an ideal environment for reputation attacks because the person inside can't respond in real time. They don't have full access to social media. They can't go live and address something the day it comes out. They can't control the narrative. Whatever story starts circulating just keeps growing because there's no one to push back against it effectively. One person says something, another repeats it. Blogs pick it up and frame it as sourced information. Social media treats repetition as verification. By the time the story has traveled far enough, it looks established even if the original claim was completely fabricated or wildly exaggerated. We've seen this pattern with other artists across multiple generations. Someone goes in, stories start. The claims are specific and dramatic enough to feel credible. The person comes home, and reality looks nothing like the narrative that was built. But people remember the rumor more than the correction because the rumor was more interesting. What the evidence in this case actually shows is straightforward. No documented incidents surfaced publicly. Early release consistent with good behavior, an OG with no stake in the outcome who described someone who handled their time quietly and correctly, and a return home that looked like someone who came through a difficult period intact, rather than someone who survived something that damaged them. The rumors told one story, the evidence tells another. And in situations like this, the evidence is almost always more reliable than whatever the internet decided to believe, while the person in question had no way to defend themselves. Do you think the rumors about what happened to be inside were real, or was this the internet building a story on top of nothing? Drop your take in the comments. Subscribe for more breakdowns that go past the surface on the stories people keep getting wrong.